This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, we've packed a number of shows together to give you some highlights. I know you're going to enjoy the show. Thank you for being with us today. Brandon, welcome to the show. It was an honor to meet you in person a few weeks ago at a conference that we were both at, both striving to grow our businesses, right, and learn from some of the best in the business. And give the listeners a little bit about your specialty, your niche, and let's dive in.
So when you've got some capital sitting on the sidelines, but you're worried about the next recession and your main focus is building a legacy and capital preservation, what we do is we target investments where it's designed to be insulated against market volatility. And how we do that is unique. We look for unique opportunities where there's a good runway in the event that something's going to happen. Right now, we think that there is a very unique opportunity in building affordable housing. Not to be misconstrued with like Section 8 or government housing, though that is its own thing, but first-time homebuyer products. You hear it on the news every single day. There is a housing shortage, and it is a housing shortage of those product types that people can get into that have a combined income of, blue collar working class families. And that's what we want to focus on.
When did syndication come into the picture?
Yeah. So we did not start syndicating until we have learned and failed. Gosh, I joke that people ask me, when did things start going well? I said, well, at one point you failed so many times. The only decisions that are left to be made are the right decisions. I mean, you're going to run out of wrong decisions eventually. We did all that with our own money. We grew it up where we were doing 40 plus house flips a year. And we had done some accidental new construction projects where, you come across like a tornado damaged home or a fire damaged home and you're buying it for less than what the land is worth. And you're like, okay, what if we just cut out all the stuff that's black and burnt, get a structural engineer, get the city out here, make sure that, we're covered and just, frame up. So we'd done a few projects like that. So 7 or 8 projects, kind of onesie twosie over the years. And then we just noticed that the market was shifting. We could no longer, make 40, 50 grand a home on a $250,000 house. It was like $25,000 to $35,000 on a $350,000 house. Much smaller margins. And everything that we do is designed to be able to insulate risk. And I didn't like these 8, 10, 11, 12% profit margins. I like the 20, 25% profit margins we were getting, 4 or 5 years ago. That was drying up because the market was getting too saturated. And so we kind of did a pause and the light bulb went off there. We literally built a house faster than we were rehabbing a house. I kid you not. We had this full gut rehab and we built this home in like 6 months and we were rehabbing this other one. It took like 8 months. And that's when the light bulb really went off when we realized, wow, the margins are about 3 times higher on these new builds than they are on these house flips. And if we can do it faster than we're flipping houses, why in the world would we do that? So we wanted to make sure that we were vertically integrated. During this time, we were trying to cut costs as much as possible and, reduce the interest rates that you're paying. And in order to do that, you ultimately need to self-manage. And so we had this great sales arm that was built out, had a great brand. People were selling us their land, selling us their houses. But then we had the issue with contractors. Everybody has problems with the GCs and all the good ones are really, really busy. So we got our general contractor's license, self-managed everything, reduced costs, decreased the timelines, and pivoted over to doing just new construction. And everyone's heard of this term called blue ocean, right? Red ocean versus blue ocean. Man, when we pivoted over and just started doing new construction, all of a sudden we had more deals than we could ever fund. I mean, it was the whole opposite problem that we had in the house flipping world where you're going on 10 appointments and getting one deal and you're talking to 30 people to get, one deal on the phones. I mean, the whole machine built. We were talking with just a handful of people because we were very laser focused on our approach because we knew the areas that we really wanted to be in, that were doing really well and having a lot of appreciation. And when we pivoted and we started doing that, all of a sudden, boom, we had more deals than we knew what to do with. So naturally, we ran out of our own money, right? Which stagnated growth. And we built these houses and we're like, man, what do we need to do to really take off like a rocket ship? And that's when we started syndicating. That's when we started bringing investor partners into the deal. giving them great returns, passive income. They're getting 3-week updates, complete with all the photos and video walkthroughs. They really loved it. They're recommending their friends and family to us. When we were able to pull our own funds, out of these deals and use it to hire people, invest in, the coaching, bigger builders who are doing bigger, better stuff than us, and investors could come in and get a piece of the deal. That's when we started syndicating. That's when things really started taking off.
We noticed this blue ocean strategy ultimately, right? We had almost a leg up on the market, right? On the competition. You had a method that there wasn't as much competition, it seems. And so you all had a method of doing things that now, man, all the deals coming in, you didn't have enough capital. It's kind of a good problem, bad problem, right? It seems to be a constant problem. It's one or the other, It seems, in our business, right? There's either more deals and not enough money or vice versa. But at this point, you all are growing quickly. You found an opportunity, man, making things happen. You figured out, okay, we're going to have to syndicate. And, you mentioned earlier too, that you made a lot of hires, and it was that during this time too, speak to, and I want to get into, going the syndication route and starting to raise money in just a moment. But when did you start hiring people?
Oh man, we made our first hire probably 5 years ago. It was when I was doing everything still.
Yeah. Right. In relation to like moving into syndication, needing more money, were you all hiring people then, or did you already have a team that you had hired? I know we had already had a team
built out. Yeah. The construction arm was already built out during, our house flipping days. We had a construction coordinator who set up, just purchase the materials, just reduce cost on with the vendors, contract negotiation, building the Gantt charts and the timeline per project. That was like his baby. And then the project managers, their sole job was just to show up and make sure that the project stayed on time. And then we had a superintendent who's kind of over everything. He's got the expertise working with the architects, the civil engineers, the surveyors, basically making sure everything is entitled and we've got a permit in hand so that we're ready to close on it. And we've got everything set up with the blueprint to make sure that we can estimate the cost really, really well. That was kind of the backbone team that we had with construction.
Awesome. Well, yeah, everybody asks, when do I make my first hire, those things. So I just wanted the progression there to doing that. It never ends. It seems you're right. You're always hiring, always looking for more talent. Right. But yeah, the sooner the better. Once you can start building that team out, it's interesting to hear you too say, it's like when you start making some money, ultimately, like it's like we're a 1-man or 2-man show until we finally make a little money. Then we can start growing our business and hiring the right people. Right. But it is just a transition, and typically a difficult transition, right? Because you are doing everything for a while. And it's almost like it's best that way to some degree because you're learning so much. Yeah, it's hard. It's a difficult time for most.
Here's the best thing, in my opinion, that you can do. And this is what worked for me. When you're talking about, should I hire? Should I not hire? How do I know which position to hire? Hire what you're best at last. For us, that was sales, because I had the sales background. So I was not good, and I did not like project management. So that was one of the first hires that we made. That'll give you a little bit of leeway into figuring out like what you should be doing with your team. Also, early on, if you're doing everything, start recording in a guide anything that you're doing that's repetitive. We have onboarding guides for every single position. There's a great software called Loom. You can literally click a button and record yourself doing something. It's got your face, it's got the screen. Build out a whole onboarding guide. Like you're going to just train somebody to do your job. Start doing that now. Do it on a weekly basis. So by the time you make this hire, they've at least got 70 to 80% of what they need to be doing. And then it's their job to figure out the last 20%. And by the way, when you're hiring somebody, we joke because we both got this book on our desk called Who Not How. Make sure you're hiring somebody that can teach you something about the position. The biggest mistake I made when I was hiring is I felt like I needed to hire somebody and I needed to have all the tools for them to get trained up on the job. Now, the only people that I hire are people that can teach us and bring us value to the position. We're in the midst of hiring a superintendent. And if this superintendent can't walk our jobs and look at our systems and processes and poke holes in it and fill in gaps and show us how we can do it better, we don't hire that person. And we do that for every single position.
Love that thought too. Tell me your thought though on like experience. So like you're hammering on experience there, which is so crucial, right? For most positions. But what's your thoughts on like experience versus say culture fit?
We hire for culture first. So we're big EOS traction fans. They got to get it, want it, and have the capacity to do it. But we've got a whole system built out around hiring. So before we even have an in-person interview, I'll run through our process real quick because I geek out on this stuff. It's so important. So first, we have a very brief 15-minute phone call. Why are you looking for work? First question I ask is, tell me what stood out most about the job and the opportunity to you. And if they can't tell me anything, it shows me they didn't show up for this call. And it's an immediate no. We figure out what their income requirements are, if they're looking for any special benefits, and then what questions they have. And again, if they don't have any questions for me, that's a red flag. We ask them those 5 basic questions. Poof, they pass the test. Now I want to see if they can figure out technology. I tell them, hey, I want you to send me a video answering these questions. And so, one of our core values is growth. Everybody at our organization is listening to podcasts, to read books. They're trying to get to the next level. So I'll ask them point blank, hey, tell me the past 4 or 5 books or podcasts you've listened to and what you learned from it. And if they say, oh, I don't read books or I don't do podcasts, boom, they're out. It's that simple. So we build questions that are designed to elicit the core values. And if they have the core values, then we'll do an in-person interview. And the in-person interview is all about skill set. We like to do something called behavioral style interviewing, where we don't like to ask questions. Tell me about your greatest strength. Tell me about your greatest weakness. We like to talk about, tell me about a time where, let's say it's a superintendent. Tell me about a time where you had to make the decision to fire a subcontractor. How did you do it? What did you say? And how did you go about finding the next sub to fill in? So we ask questions designed for them to tell us stories around specific experiences that show that they've got the skills in order to do the job.
How did you learn your hiring process? What is there a specific book or two or something? So I've talked about hiring a lot on the show, and it's incredible. The things you're saying right now are so crucial. And I hope the listeners are taking notes. It's just save them so much time and headaches down the road if they'll just do some of those things you just mentioned. Mm-hmm. How did you learn that process?
The behavioral style interviewing actually came from medical device sales. When I was trying to break into that industry, I met a great guy named Tim. He was regional sales manager of the Pew Synthes and Spine. He's like, I'm not going to hire you because I only hire people with experience. That was the catch-22 about medical device sales. Everybody wanted to hire people with experience. And you're like, well, how do I get the experience? And he gave me this behavioral style interviewing guide. He said, have stories designed to answer these questions and you will do well in the interview. So that was where the behavioral style interviewing came from. The core values came from Gino Wickman, the Traction book, Get a Grip. Great book. Get a Grip tells like the story in a fable form. I love the story stuff more than I like the hard advice books, but that's where the core value stuff came in.
Love that. I couldn't recommend that stuff enough either. Right? You're not going to be able to implement all of it immediately, but over some time, man, you're going to have a better organization, no doubt about it. So grateful for that. And Brandon, unfortunately, we were running a long time, and I wanted to get to the syndication, raising money, some of those things. We'll have to have you back, I hope soon, so we can dive into some of that, because this hiring stuff is so important. And I get questions around that so often. I didn't expect us to go into that, but I'm glad that we did, because you laid out some just many great things there, very practical things that the listener can do right away to ensure they're hiring the best candidate. A couple of things, though, around what you were mentioning. You talked about hiring, you talked about them asking them questions where they respond in a story, experience. It's so good, right? It's so good. It allows them to tell you more also than maybe you would have known about them otherwise, right? And it allows you to ask more questions about what they're saying. Are there any examples where maybe you hired the wrong person and it just didn't work out? What were those red flags, or has that happened?
The advice is fast to fire, slow to hire. We're very slow. There's 5 interview processes that they take. And, sometimes you can do everything right and you feel like you got the great candidate. I'll tell you a story. We had a guy, it was a project manager position, and he was coming up from Florida. We flew him up. Man, we loved him. This guy was hilarious. He could make you laugh. He had a very magnetic personality. And we did the whole work day where he flew up and he drove around with another one of our PMs and my partner and, going to the projects, and he was pointing out things. And man, we thought that it was great. He had the experience because he worked for a company down there that did They did like remodel work for like fire damage stuff and like flooded stuff. I forget the name of the companies, but it was very, very deep work. We made the mistake where his skill set, he was used to working with insurance companies, had like vendors lined up and they could pay for whatever. Big part about what we do is negotiation, right? You got to be able to negotiate with that contractor right on the spot and figure out how to solve that problem as it happens, especially in a new construction project. And he wasn't used to that. He was used to, okay, cool. Fire's here. Insurance is paying this much. Here's the sub, I'm kind of done. Right. And it was kind of this overpayment of the subcontractor. And he almost didn't even need to manage anything. That's not how it works in the construction world. You've got to show up every single day and make sure your guys are on time. They're being managed properly. So, and you've got to pick this up. He didn't have a whole lot of say-so and kind of who got picked. It was a lot of, what the insurance companies were doing. So he had the experience, but there wasn't a direct alignment. So we could have done a little bit better job of maybe asking him some questions around, hey, tell me about a time you were required to negotiate with a subcontractor when pricing changed. How did you do that? Tell me about that item. So it's a learning experience. The best thing you can do when that does happen, though, is figure out where you did go wrong in the hiring process and make sure you add that to your hiring process so that it doesn't happen again.
All right, Brandon, switching gears just a little bit. What are your thoughts on just the real estate market over the next 6 to 12 months? And is the way that you all are operating changing at all because of maybe anything you expect?
Yes, it is. Because of construction volatility, we're raising more money up front and buying as much materials up front as humanly possible. So we felt it when things started to rise where, okay, great, we got our bids in, we locked in pricing. And then, 4 or 5 months later, when it comes time to buy some of these products, drywall, some of the cabinet stuff towards the end of the project, prices were just, up 20, 25%. We felt that. So now what we do is, we just secured 2 warehouses in 2 locations where we're doing most of our builds. And you're going to see those warehouses full of materials because we're buying it all up front because we don't want prices to creep up on us anymore. That's one thing that we're doing. The next is we're being very conservative in our costs. So how are we doing that? We're not building as big of homes anymore, believe it or not. So, we actually just had 8 homes that were going to be around 20, we had a 1,650 square foot product, 1,850, and then like a 2,200. There's a little area where there's 8. It's right around everything else that we're doing. When construction costs went up, we just said, you know what? The better products right now are the more affordable products. And that's what we're going to build. So instead of doing 8 of the homes that were larger, we're doing smaller homes because we're getting better traction with that product type. And with, interest rates creeping up, making mortgages more expensive, we want to make sure that we're in that asset class that people pivot into when things turn, right? When there's a real estate recession or an economic recession, certain needs don't go away. You still got to buy groceries, right? It might not be a bad place to have money into. The need to live is still there, right? People just don't live in as luxurious living arrangements. They pivot towards those more affordable living arrangements. And that's what we want to be in. We want to be in that, B class, still great neighborhood, affordable product, but you're not in like the war zone areas. As far as where the housing market's going to go, I think we're still okay for the next 6 months. And the reality is no one has a crystal ball and nobody knows. And if they tell you that they know, they're lying to you. But you can see about 6 months into the future without any crazy black swan events. Right now, you've got interest rates that are going up. That's pushing towards price suppression. And you've got all this money printing that's going on. That's pushing inflation. You've got record housing appreciation, record low inventory, record high demand. I mean, the only thing I can for sure predict over the next, 6 to 9 months is volatility. You have these ginormous forces pushing on each other. And that's going to have some kind of big effect. One of those forces is going to pop and you're going to have a big transition over into whatever that area is. So I don't know what's going to happen. I think that affordable housing products are going to remain very attractive. Class B, Class C value add multifamily, where you can kind of help dictate what the price is through the value add play. I think that's going to remain very good. Markets where The government didn't shut everything down during COVID. Very business-friendly states, I think, are a great place to be. One of the reasons we like Tennessee is there's no income taxes. That's huge, right? Tennessee and Florida, that didn't shut everything down during COVID. That's a pretty good safe haven. Areas where you're having massive growth. That's one of the reasons we like Nashville. It's been one of the top 10 fastest growing cities in the United States for the past 7 years. You want to be in those areas where you're going to have some insulation when and if it does. But I do think that, we're on the last leg. I don't think we're going to see humongously price appreciation like we have in the past. What that looks like, is it going to take a sharp turn and go down? I don't know, but whatever happens, we're going to be ready for it.
Awesome. What about some daily habits that you have that have helped you achieve success?
I work out every single day. I'm kind of addicted to it. I don't watch TV. I constantly am looking for ways to improve my body being balanced in business. I make sure that I take care of me and my family first. So working out, getting in good shape. I guess that's not really a daily habit, my sibling trips with my family every single year, but I'll make sure that I'm focused on whatever the most important thing is. I tend to obsess about a particular subject before I move on to the next. Right now, the biggest problem that we have hindering our growth is just capital. Right. So it won't be like that forever. Right. We've got more deals right now than we know what to do with. So I'm constantly trying to find the strategic partners who I can align myself with and bring into our business to have that growth. So I'm focused on that every single day, working out, figuring out who it is that I need to attract into my business and figure out ways on how to add value to them.
What's the number one thing that's contributed to your success?
Oh man, who, not how. I got to go back to that again. I sound like a broken record at this point, but yeah, like I said, we were talking before the show. I'm not a very smart guy. I'm just figuring out, like right now, I'm trying to get in rooms with builders who are doing 300 to 1,000 a year. We had a little get together at my buddy's house the other day. There was a guy in there that was building 2,000 homes in Denver, Colorado. Oh my gosh, you better believe I wanted to talk to that guy. So that by far has been the biggest thing, figure out who's already doing what you're doing and figuring out ways to align yourself and help them.
How do you like to give back?
Oh, so we have a program where we've actually got one of our developments. It's a 36 townhome development. We're actually giving away one of the homes to a family who lost a veteran. And we're solely focused on reducing veteran homelessness in Middle Tennessee. So we've worked with the local veteran affairs community. And we've identified there's about 247 homeless vets. My partner's active military, by the way, he's a vet. So we really wanted to do something that was centered around kind of what he's done for the past 16 years in the military. And so we're really rallying around how do we make a big impact in this community to reduce veteran homelessness. So we're trying to get it down to 90%. So 247 down to about 26. We've got this amazing organization called Matthew 25 who works with the VA and helps like men get back on their feet. We're looking to do some stuff with them and maybe find somewhere where they can help more people because they've got the pipeline that's already set up. But we're really gung-ho about reducing veteran homelessness in Middle Tennessee. Memorial weekend just came up. Every Memorial Day, I think about all the soldiers who gave their lives. And the biggest insult that we can do to them is to not live our life to the fullest. Because if I was one of those guys and I gave my life for people to have this amazing life, I would be really upset if they were just living it in a meaningless way and not taking advantage of it.
What was that process of learning the syndication business? Because that can seem so daunting to some, right? It's like, well, do I really want to take investors' money? Some people are really scared of doing that. Right. And growing a syndication business where we're working with investors instead of just using my own capital. Right. What was that process like for you? And let's talk about, growing that side of the business.
Yeah. So you've got to reach a certain level of confidence. If you don't feel confident in yourself, your abilities in the deal, it is not time to use other people's money. We had done so many deals with our own capital or, using like hard money, professional lenders that we were like, all right, it's time, right? We need to be able to bring other people on board. So it was a position where we had about $6 million of construction out. And what we had normally done was we had done these like normal promissory notes where if we needed $300,000 to build the home and buy the land, we went and, we were going out there and we would raise that money. So it wasn't a syndication style. We were still doing debt positions. We weren't inviting investors on as equity positions. And we realized that in order to grow to the volume that we needed to grow, about $20 million a year new construction, oh my God, it was going to take a long time to raise an additional $14 million. And I was kind of the single dude, one man band raising the money for my team. I had an assistant that helped out with a lot of things, but that's a pretty big task. And I was like, God, I'm never going to be able to do this. And so again, I went back to who, not how. And I said, well, who's doing this at a bigger scale and how are they doing it? What am I doing wrong? I joined a mastermind. It was strictly focused on raising capital. Most of the people in there were doing multifamily deals. They were not doing, single family new construction. So it was kind of an odd bird out. But I noticed that they were raising money and they were able to leverage that money to get, construction loans from the bank to do these deals. And I go, wait a minute, you can raise $2 million for a deal and buy $6 million worth of real estate and get a $4 million loan. I was like, that's possible, which is kind of funny because you think with, 6-7 years in the business, I would have figured that out, but I hadn't. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I sat down with an SEC attorney and they explained everything. And the guys in the group were able to connect me with a great attorney who was able to deliver. And he explained the rules around raising money. Luckily, most of the people I was doing business with, I already had a pre-existing relationship with. I had a mild form of success, raising some money over 4 years. I probably raised $6 million. And then once we had the system built and we had the paperwork done, all I had to do was go to my investors and say, hey, good news. I can give you guys higher returns than what I've been giving you. And here's how we're going to do it. So I explained the difference. Hey, it's going to be an equity position. It's not going to be a debt position. Here's how we can pay you more money. Your money is going to go into this entity, and this entity is going to be used to get more money. More money means more profit, which means more returns for you. So I explained what the risks were too, because there was more risks associated with it. And at the end of the day, they're like, man, you've been performing and we've been really happy with you. We trust you. And so I was able to take that, I'd say 4 or 5 million of the 6 I'd raised, put it into, a syndication form into these different deals. And man, things became a whole lot easier when we did that. It opened up a lot of new doors and really allowed us to scale because, we could do things like charge a small fee to help out with operational expenses. That helped out with cash flow. It allowed us to make the hires sooner that we needed. It allowed us to not have any pressure on the business. That's when things really took off, was when we learned how to syndicate these deals and add value to investors.
Awesome. Wow. Okay. So you joined a mastermind. I wanted to go back to that. You joined a mastermind, and I've been in numerous masterminds, and some have been better than others. However, I would say almost all of them, I've met people who I've stayed friends with, right? Or we've learned from even longer down the road, whether I'm still in that mastermind or not. I built friendships where we still connect, or we've done deals together, or we help one another, right? In some way. Speak to why, or I assume it was around raising money, but was there a specific reason about this mastermind versus, or outside of just raising money?
The subject that I was focused on at the time, I needed to figure out how to do that because I had all my own money, locked up in the deals. I had $6 million out with investors. I needed to be able to grow and scale. The sales team was there. We were turning down deals. That's the worst feeling in the world, is when you get a really, really good deal and you have to turn it down. So I needed to figure out who had built the systems and the processes and who was doing it at a bigger scale than me, and what are they doing that I'm not doing. And I found the mastermind through a book, Raising Capital for Real Estate, by Hunter Thompson. The mastermind's headed up by Hunter Thompson. Great mastermind. Hunter Thompson's a great dude. Highly recommend it. But that's how I was introduced to the mastermind, through the books that I was reading.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it seems like you were seeking information though, right? You read the books. He does have a great book on raising money. I've spoken at that mastermind. And so I would encourage anybody to look him up in that book, as far as if you're focused on raising money. Definitely lays out some practical steps in there, right? To help you to brand yourself and raise more money. So I love how you took action, though. You're helping educate yourself. You find this mastermind. You start meeting more people. You found a great attorney. You're asking questions, right? I mean, you are trying to ensure you're doing this the best you can. What were some of the next steps to really, say, grow in raising money? To whether it was through marketing, whether it was just through networking. What did you do next?
Yeah. So that mastermind gave us all the back end systems and processes that we needed. I'd done a really good job of cultivating the relationships and delivering to the investors. But in order to bring on, new capital, you've got to have certain systems and processes in place. So one of the first things that we did was we looked at all the investors that we had. And we said, who accounts for most of the capital that we've raised? Is there a similarity in them? And we did notice it, because the biggest piece of advice they gave us is you need a target avatar, right? Who is it that you serve best at the highest level? And for us, it was busy business owners or high paid professionals that have discretionary income that want to reduce their taxable liability and create passive income with a focus on capital preservation. And so that animal has very specific needs. And so what we did was we started creating content that was curated around solving the specific needs of that target demographic. So what does that look like? If you're a busy high earning professional or a busy entrepreneur and you've got discretionary income, well, you've got a tax problem, right? That's where the Class B and Class C value add multifamily depreciation benefits. So we do videos centered around depreciation. We'd send those out. Hiring systems and processes, right? We're all entrepreneurs. We all have issues with hiring. So we create videos around that. How to hire for culture, anything that we knew would provide value to that target demographic. And we would put it out on our email list, because we had a nice email list that we'd created over the years back in our wholesaling days, right? A lot of single family house flippers and people searching for rentals, just educating them on the value of passive investment and how to do it. We raised a couple $1 million from that list. We were sending it out every single day on social media, hitting all the organic channels, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and then our own network, asking our current investors, hey, do you know anybody who might be a really, really good fit? And funneling people to our website. And so the website that we have is centered around value add, right? That's, you go to the website, there's a book, Recession Resistant Passive Income. You can hop on there and free. It's at hbgcapital.net. It is designed to explain exactly how you can insulate yourself against another crazy 2008, 2009, what product types are going to do well, and most importantly, why those product types are going to do well. So to explain what we did, we had another free ebook, 100 questions passive investors should be asking before investing. That's the best thing you can do when you're jumping into a new niche, no matter what it is, whether it's investing or you're trying to get into building cars. You want to make sure you're asking the right questions to the people that you're vetting. And so that book can add a ton of value and help prevent making a really, really bad investment. Gosh, what else? There's so many things centered around raising capital. The biggest thing you need to do is add value.
Yeah. What about any tech that you've used that have helped you? You all use like an investor portal, CRM, those things, or anything that has helped you to streamline this process or be more efficient?
Active Campaign. So we used a contractor. His name's Jason Wright. He is an Active Campaign specialist. He did a really good job of building out all of our backend systems and processes. So when you go to the website and you sign up for the ebook, you're going to get 6 more emails over the next 6 days that are the highest viewed YouTube videos that we had, videos and content that we got the most feedback from and said, wow, thank you. This really helped. So again, all designed to deliver value. If you decide to set up a call with us, there's another email that's automatically sent that says, hey, make sure you absorb this information before the call. It's just really important. And a lot of people are like, wow, that was really good. This helped. And it helped us have a very efficient first time call that was centered around just basically getting to know them and their goals and what they're trying to achieve. And then afterwards, when we put them in the next stage, they get another thank you email. Usually there's a handwritten note that's sent out if they put their address in it. So the whole thing is completely automated from start to finish, from emails to text message follow-up, so that you're not having to do a lot of this stuff. Active Campaign has helped a lot with all of the back-end systems and automations.
No doubt about it. That's incredible too. That's some type of CRM, right? You got to document these things, especially if you're doing a 506B deal. So, Brandon, appreciate the content around that. And I wanted to ask you too, and even the transparency around the type of content you're creating is great. Is there a platform that you focused on the most as far as, YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn or something like that?
They all seem to work really well. Most of our new capital that we raise, honestly, it comes from referrals, right? Just making sure you're taking care of your existing investor base. I've had investors start out with $230,000 and they're up to like $2.5 million with us now, right? You never know how much money somebody has or when they're going to come in the money. I've got old buddies from, oh my gosh, grade school who, inherited, money and they want to invest. People who have reached out to some of the people who've been investing with us for a while and ask, hey, do you know somebody? So a lot of it is referral based. That's the strongest platform I think you can take advantage of. So building campaigns around asking for referrals, having relationships with your investors, make sure you're following up with them at least, once a quarter or every 6 months and asking how things are going. Make sure that you have an investor experience roadmap. That's what we have, because we figured out that looking at the numbers, wow, most of the new capital we raise comes from our existing investor base, probably 30 to 40% of it. And why is that? It's because we give them a great experience. So how do we optimize that experience? How do we make them feel like they're a part of the deal, right? We do video walkthroughs of like all of our homes. The PMs are like walking them through the stages. We show the permits, we show the passing of the framing, everything, the next steps involved. We put the Gantt chart on all of our updates so they can actually see where we are in the process and make sure we're online. We put the budgets, how much have we spent versus how much was on the budget. We want them to feel like they're part of that investment. And we try to make it fun too, right? Because at the very end of the day, people want to spend money on things that are fun. So we try to make it fun too along the entire way. So I'd say that that's where we focus on most, but all of the platforms together, they all add a little bit of leads, and that adds up to a pretty good amount of incoming leads.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. It's just, you laid out many great things there as well, as far as even the video walkthroughs. Investors love seeing those things, right? Oftentimes your investors are in another state or, really far away. They can't be there. But I just think it says a lot when you take the time, especially to take pictures at least. But man, a video is nice as well, right? They can see what's happening, that there's progress, that, hey, I did invest in an actual deal here. Things are happening. I feel like I know Brandon better because I heard him talking as he's walking through this project or whatever it is, or maybe I met a team member on the video as well. So incredible. I want to jump into, we mentioned it on the last show and you did before we started recording about everything you are doing right now is with the expectation of another 2008. Maybe you can highlight just your business model a little bit more. And I want to jump into what that means and what does that mean and how does that affect your business strategy?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, you want to put as many layers of insulation between you and the market as possible. So how do you invest in recession resistant real estate? Well, it's a subjective term and it's going to change depending on what the market is, right? So we look for unique opportunities. Right now, we think the unique opportunity is affordable new construction products because there is such a drastic low supply of this product and there's huge demand for it. Now, not to be confused with like Section 8 or government housing. We're not doing that. We're talking about like, how can a blue collar working class family get into a new construction home, right? So the first thing that you got to look at when you have this contraction in the economy is where are the people going to go? The need to live doesn't go away. They still have to have somewhere to live. But what are they doing? They're losing jobs or their income's getting cut. Spouse might have a temp job or have to downgrade to something with not as much money coming in. They cut costs. And your biggest cost for most consumers is your living arrangements. So we're really gung-ho on, product types, $385,000 and less. We think there's going to be a pivot towards that. Again, it's got to be in a good area, right? That's important. And it's one of the areas that we focus on in Nashville is because in the suburban markets in Nashville, you can still get these, $385,000 new construction homes in great areas with land and yard and everything that they don't have in these higher tax states like New York and California. So that's one reason we really like Nashville. Another layer of insulation you can add is what has the growth of the city been like? Nashville has been one of the fastest growing cities in the United States the past, 6-7 years. That's another layer of insulation that you get. Cities with fast growth typically don't get affected as much as cities that don't have all those jobs moving there. Another reason we really like, Tennessee and, Florida is the no state income taxes. So any state that puts more money in the business's pocket is going to move their businesses there. That's why you see so many businesses moving from California and New York and these high tax states to Tennessee. They like that. And they're all coming to Nashville because it's better than the other cities. The local politicians are also incentivizing businesses to move here. So they're giving cities further tax cuts and making it more attractive for them to move here. So you've got all this perfect formula for attracting businesses to the city. That is going to be your affordability and growth are the two biggest layers of insulation you can add to whatever recession you're going to have, whether it's real estate or the economy or whatever. So from a macro perspective, that's what you're working with. Now let's talk about some of the smaller layers of insulation. What can you further do to add insulation to your investments? Well, you want to buy deep equity deals. So we're not in our homes focused on, 7,000 homes a year with 10% profit margin. We want nice 20, 25% profit margins after it's all said and done. Most of our loans are underwritten 67% LTV or less. That gives us a nice runway. And then you've got to think of the next risk is the market risk. So how long are you in and out of these deals? So we do two different deal types. We do, land development where we can build multiple homes all at once, track infill projects. And then we've got your just straightforward infill projects that are you're buying onesie, twosie. We typically won't look at it unless we can build at least 8 homes there. But what that does for the infill, we're in and out in 10 months, usually. We tell people 12, but that allows us to at least limit our market exposure. And we're not buying the land until we've either got a permit in place or there's entitlement done. I've heard some crazy stories out in California where they buy stuff and gamble on the entitlement. It's just insane. So we want to make sure that we limit the risk of buying a bad investment by making sure that it's good to go before we buy it. And then self-managing everything. Vertical integration in today's market couldn't come at a better time when things are competitive with cost and builders being super busy. That's why we self-manage everything. We don't want to rely on another builder who could go belly up or bite off more business than he can chew or become disabled. And all of a sudden your whole portfolio is at risk. We don't want that risk. So we're typically in and out 10 months on the infill stuff. For the land development, what I like about it is you have multiple exit strategies. And you've got a hot topic right now called build to rent. And I call it stupid money. I think there's a lot of stupid money chasing the build to rent space. So we're developing these lots and we've got different exit strategies depending on where we're at. We can either do the development, which might take 4 to 8 months tops, and we could sell it off to a bigger builder, get in and out of the deal. Or if that goes well, and at the point where we're done with all the roads and infrastructure, we could say, okay, what's the market look like? Do we want to build ourselves? Okay, market looks good. Let's do it. So you've got multiple exit strategies. So having that new asset class where, we're focused on selling some stuff to some build to rent guys, that's great. But what's the worst case scenario? The consumer, right? So as long as we build that in and have multiple exit strategies, all right, selling off the build to rent, selling off the consumers, refinancing ourselves and keeping it as a build to rent community and stabilizing it, that's another option. We want as many exit strategies as humanly possible that have all those layers of insulation stacked on top of it.
Thank you for being with us again today. I hope that you have learned a lot from the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you're telling your friends about the Real Estate Syndication Show and how they can also build wealth in real estate. You can also go to lifebridgecapital.com and start investing today.